All right, hello everyone. My name is Disc, and in this video we have another viewer lesson coming into us from my Patreon, and we have a 20 halls of infusion, and for the week cycle we are tyrannical and afflicted. So again, I'm still trying to get going over at metafy.gg, so I'm still looking for some vouchers from my viewer base. It is real easy. You just go over there. You do have to make an account, but you just check a box and submit, and that is all I need. I think I'm getting close to being partnered. I found out that they have a pretty long queue of things. And I think also the people who do the approval have been on vacation, they said. I don't know. But I'm really eager to get going over there. In the meantime, I've been taking quite a few private lessons just off the books on my own, which has been really fun for me. And if anyone is interested in getting a one-on-one lesson with me, please reach out. In the meantime, while I'm not approved for metafy.gg. So let's go ahead and get into it. So I wanted to try a new format here that I think will be more engaging for everyone, because I think this video, will be most valuable to our priest Amish mode, but I want it to still be a good video for everyone else on my channel as well. So I wanted to try a new format where I do more of a like a stop and go type of approach to this video, where I can just pause and talk about things as I would like. And in the front, I really only want to include my thoughts on your spec, and then we'll also look at your meters, and then we'll go into the key. So first off, Halls of Infusion, we are a solo priest here, so we have to bank all of our points right here, and we also have to bank a point into Dispel. And because of all these extra points we have to take, it really just means we have to sacrifice somewhere else, but we really don't want to sacrifice pull out of the Bulwark and Crystalline Reflection. That just does so much with our shields over here. So this is the last place I would say sacrifice, especially when I'm looking at your talents. I don't think you need this point in Improved Fear, so that could be 1 point for CR. I also think Tendrils over Dominate Mind might be better for the frogs instead of focusing on the last boss. And then Improved Fade, again, I'd rather have Bulwark over Improved Fade. And if you had to, you could drop Throes of Pain, maybe like 1 point of Throes of Pain for down here. But this isn't too bad, and neither is the disc side of things. When it comes to Halls of Infusion, we really have to bank defensive. So Bright Pupil is great, Solace is great. And the only thing that's different over here that people have not seen on my channel is I don't play TE by choice. It's just not a play style I want to deal with. I think you can still have value if you kind of piss into the wind with it. But very similarly, I think you can just, go for the play style of Long Schism as long as you know how to maximize it. And that's just what I've done. I think there's a lot of power in managing your own spells in your own time, rather than kind of having this ask to always modulate back and forth. And then, so yeah, we're looking pretty good over here. And let's quickly glance at your meters. So I think let's look at your healing first, which is right on track. So your atonements are separated out, but if you can imagine those stacked, your atonements are far in the lead, which is exactly what we want. And then shield and radiance are pretty close neck and neck, and I think that's about what I have too. The biggest difference here is I don't see you're playing Flash Heal nearly as much as I do. I think my Flash Heal is usually above Radiance and Shield. It is just such a valuable spell in our book. It's something we want to play often when we're not in Shadow Covenant, and we often want to play it as we're ramping atonements into Shadow Covenant. So food for thought on that one. And then over on the DPS side of things, I think this is where we can highlight some more of your misses. So first off, looking at your damage overall, you're under 35,000 a second, and that is quite low for this place. I think mine was closer to 50, and the reason this matters as a disc priest is because our DPS directly yields our HPS. So the more we can pump this number, the more we're going to be getting out of our tune, and the more useful we're going to be to the group. So first, looking at this, your number 1 and 2 are fine. I think overall we just need more from everything, and then we kind of also need to put things back in the right order. Some things are out of proportion, but your 1 and 2 are fine. your next 4 should all be your shadow spells. So if we notice, our Dark Reprimand is what's missing from up here. And, pretty simply, I'm going to talk about, as we get into this key, we have 15 seconds in Shadow Covenant and 15 seconds out of, and it's kind of this back and forth cycle. When we play it right, when we play it optimally, we should be getting 2 of our penance in Dark Reprimand. I'm sorry, 2 of our penance in Shadow Covenant, and then 1 out of. So base value, we should be getting twice as many Dark Reprimands as penance, so it should easily be on top, even if you're not playing Long Schism, which is what I do. And I think what this highlights here, and we definitely see this when we get into the key, you are not prioritizing your Dark Reprimand. You are not always getting 2. I think a very small percentage of your Shadow Covenants you got 2. And then also a big thing I'm noticing, you're losing a lot of value by dropping Dark Reprimands that are not procced. And when it comes to our rotation and the intention behind our class and how it's meant to be played, we need to only drop these Dark Reprimands when they're procced. Very, very situationally, I might play a penance that's not procced just to spread a dot. But for the most part, when we're in Shadow Covenant, we only want to drop procs, and we want twice as many Dark Reprimands as penance, and this should easily double your penance. So your Dark Reprimand should be way up here. So you're missing a lot of DPS, you're missing a lot of healing, and then looking at your Mind Blast, it should always be above your death. And sometimes I've seen it come right below death, but this gap should be, not as substantial. But I do notice as we watch your key, you do not fiend for your Mind Blast kind of in the right way. So Mind Blast is the one spell in my book that I never want to have off cooldown. So we always want to be playing that spell. We always want it rolling. And if we're ever sitting at a 2 stack, we have a lot of loss. So we never want a 2. We always want this running. And in tandem, that will kind of elevate your expiation as well. So with that being said, I think let's go ahead and clip over to your key. All right, so here we are. I'm going to try and keep this contiguous and just have one long train of thought here where I pause and go. So let's see how it goes. And we'll just talk about things as it comes.
5.
Okay, so first, I think I'm going to sound like a broken record when I talk about this, but we really need our UI to serve us. And I think it's a very common theme when it comes to any type of user interface or any type of computer programming or things like that. Screen space is so finite, we have to use it wisely, and our interface is essentially our eyes. So when it comes to discipline, we do have a lot we have to manage, to be honest. We really want to minimize additional information and pretty much eliminate additional information. And we only want to leave stuff on the screen that is going to help us or that we need to see. So right off the bat, I think you're using LVY. I really don't recommend that. I think you would do a lot better getting my nameplates and getting my bars and then editing down your BigWigs. I think you should also get rid of this combat HUD. I looked up the guy who made these, and on his Wago page, he has one for every single spec in the game. And what this tells me is he made this when he doesn't even play Priest. I think it's awful, to be honest. And I'm considering just making one myself so it's easy for other people to use. But this is an awful combat HUD. I really think you should try and model it after mine. And then when it comes to your bars, you have these color-coded. I don't recommend that. We really only want a couple values here, a couple colors. We want all of our health bars to be the same color. We want our deficit to only be black. We don't want shields in our deficit. And the way your bars are set up is every percent of their health has a different color value. So we have like 10,000 different colors we're seeing on our bars. When it comes to a UI, I think also something I preach is we need function over form. So we really don't want something that is flashy. And I think a lot of people might like do something like this because they think it looks good. Or maybe, to be honest, you just loaded it from somewhere. But we don't want so many colors on our bars. We want them all to be the same color. I say a light gray. We can use color to highlight atonement, which I think is the best way to do it. And then we want our deficits to always be a true black. So we don't want all of these color changes. So I really think you should get my Grid 2. It is amazing for this spec. It is highly configured and highly like professional. And all you have to do is copy paste it. It'll be easy AF. And then when it comes to your, so I'm going to try not to dwell here too much, but with a UI, it's really important that we know what matters to us and kind of like know where to draw that line and eliminate things that don't matter. So there is no reason you need to be tracking so many spells with OmniCD. And I know you have, it looks like your own system for maximizing PI. It's like a weak aura. But for your druid, I would say the only thing you need to track is his incarn. Like seeing his bark skin doesn't do anything for you. Seeing his nature's vigil does nothing for you. And similar, like with the warrior, all you need is his avatar or whatever it's called. So we don't need so many spells. We need to use this add-on like more with more intention. And we're trying to create a system to help us maximize PI. So that's just my thoughts on that. We really want to preserve as much screen space as possible. So when it comes to redundancies, so you have 2 mana bars, mana bar here, mana bar here. You also have 2 cast bars. So I think this is just a UI that maybe you've imported. And the only problem I have with these imported UIs is I think the people making them have no business making them. I don't think this is a good UI. I think you could minimize quite a bit, and in a way it would be opening your eyes to the more important information. And then with nameplates, I'm not going to get into it, but just get my nameplates. This is way too much information. Okay, so let's just start.
4, 3, 2, 1.
I'll also say maybe condense your meters. The left side of your screen over here is pretty valuable. I would rather see that opened up. So we should be opening with dots, and it's to spread your dot. Pause right here too. So I talked about shields in my Grid 2. This is a good example where your shield value is in the deficit. And later in the key, it almost read as the same color as the health. So even though I think it was the warrior was at, maybe this isn't the best example. Let's just keep going.
And health.
So there's your PI weak aura. And then this to me, okay, so when I talk about editing BigWigs, we never want these messages ever. They're bad. So I would say turn all those off. I think it's great that you have my weak aura here for your fear opportunity. I think the location is fine too. Perhaps maybe consider bringing it down. But then look at our nameplates. Right here is just flooded with so much information that I can't see anything. All we really need to see is a health percent of the mob and our dot. We don't need these stars. We don't need every single cooldown of theirs. You have that weak aura. I would whittle that down. I think seeing CC on the right is good, but this is just flooded with way too much information. We're seeing the percentage drawn out to tenths. We're seeing the value, which is it's just a lot of information here that is overloading this area of the screen, and you're not really able to see what you need to see easily.
Afflicted. Afflicted.
And just while we're here real quick, so I have watched this video a couple times over just to learn it. And 2 really black and white areas where we can improve is you did not cast Shadow Fiend once during this whole key. And he has kind of a long cooldown, so a great first play for him is pull 1. So he should be on cooldown. And then also, you didn't use a single pain sup. So we really need to work all these spells into our rotation just to make sure we are fully utilizing our spec. Okay, so let's just see, what could you have done there? You had the weak aura to show the X pulse, but your fear was on cooldown, so nothing you could have done.
Afflicted. Afflicted.
Another thing with nameplates, it's so important for us to see execute range. I think the best way to do that in a UI is just have a color shift. So let's say like you like your bars blue, that's fine. Have them shift red and execute, or have them shift white is what I do. And I think that's the easiest way to see when someone passes that threshold. Right now yours has this like line that's animated, so it's just not as clear. Not as clear as it could be. Also, a general note is you're not playing your Mind Blast nearly enough. It is a huge spell. Watching your Mind Blast. Okay, got that one out. Yeah, pretty much as soon as Mind Blast comes up, you want to push it again. It itself is an insane amount of healing, but then when you add in the expiation atonement tick as well, anything that hits expiation, we need to keep rolling. That's death. So I'm watching for your Shadow Covenant this time. Okay, you're in Shadow Covenant. There's one Dark Reprimand.
Afflicted. Afflicted.
Okay, you only got one Dark Reprimand. I believe it was a proc, but you did not have your second. A lot of loss when you drop your second. Really good fear. I think that helped the group out. Yeah, so I have this weak aura too. I think it's called Enemy Cooldown on Nameplate. I don't know. I think everyone uses it. It's a great weak aura. But similar to BigWigs, when you download it out of box, it has every single spell in the game on. So you just have so much information flashing up here, coming and going. It's more than you need. And in turn, I look at that as hurting you. So I use this very sparingly, a lot like my BigWigs. There's really only a handful of spells that we need to know the cooldown of, and generally it's group-wide attacks, and this is not one of those pulls. Food for thought. Yeah, with my weak aura, the one that has those cooldowns on nameplate, I think at most I have like 2 spells per dungeon on. So I use it really sparingly, and I think that makes it like more of a potent like notice. Oh, also party nameplates, you've got to turn those on. When it comes to Radiance, it is the only spell in our book that's not 40 yards, it's only 30, which means if you're just guessing when you Radiance your party, you only have a 20% chance essentially of hitting the right person. And when we're trying to maximize Radiance, we want it to hit everyone. And you're only going to be able to do that by picking out the right person in the field. And you can really only tell your party apart by nameplates. So in a raid, that is not the right call. Party nameplates are crazy in a raid. But in a Mythic Plus, we want them. Okay, so also pause real quick. I think you play your spells in a different order than me. Arguably, maybe not like wrong. But with BigWigs, so what I would do here is with my bar timers, you have every bar on. I would say only Static Surge, because that's where we have to line up our heals and make sure we're ready. And then the Power Overload, which is the dot, that is what I keep on its nameplate. So when I'm watching the bars, there's only one bar. I know exactly what it is without having to first like read it. So I have one bar on, that's for my Static Surge and timing my heals. And then on his nameplate, I'll have the Power Overload. And that's, I think, a really nice way to keep an eye on those spells in different ways to not get them confused.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Okay, so on this Shadow Covenant,
Afflicted.
you did not have your Harsh Discipline ramped yet. So you missed a lot of value on your Dark Reprimands there. I think you only got one as well. And it was Okay, yeah, there were 2 and neither were procs is what it looks like.
5,
So you miss half the value.
4, 3, 2, 1.
Do barrier.
Afflicted. Afflicted.
So I want to pause really quick, and it's hard for me to see this, so I know it's hard for you to see it as well, but like when we were looking at your healing meters, and we had your atonement just way out in front, doing almost double of everything else, that's what we want. That's a really good spread, and what that says is our Solace, our Penance, Mind Blast, Death, Star, those are our most important spells. They're also short cooldowns, so it's really important that we keep an eye on them and play them, like have them running always. And I think the best way to do that is when they're grouped. So if you look at, I'll flash it up on the screen right here. If you look at mine, our biggest spells, our most important spells in our book are the biggest on my bar. They're also closest to my tune. And they're biggest on purpose because it's just so important that we keep an eye on those cooldowns to make sure they're always actively on cooldown and running. So I designed this in a way that is going to help us play our most important spells. And right now with yours, your Penance is here, Solace is here, which also moves. Your Mind Blast and Death are together. That's nice, but they're opposite side of the Penance. Your Stars at Cattywampus, your Schism, which is hella important. I would say that should be central. Your yeah, so there's food for thought. These type of spells are atonement spells, should be grouped, and that's why I just don't think a priest made this weak art. So you play this differently, and I think that's fine. But I would be instantly mass dispelling there. I think it's a good play. You go into Rapture here.
Afflicted.
Okay, here's a pretty good example. 1, if you're in Rapture, I really think you should only be rapturing. Well, this isn't a good example. We'll find it in a second.
Afflicted.
I'm not really sure as a
Afflicted.
healer tracking interrupts, or as a priest tracking interrupts is that important. When it comes to my Fear Bomb, I'm basing it more off of if a cast gets too close to going off. It's not really dependent on everyone else.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And what is this on the nameplate? Is Solace on your nameplate? I'm really confused about that. I really think you should only have your dot and Schism.
Afflicted. Afflicted.
And also, one rule of thumb with UI is we don't want things overlapping. It really doesn't take too long, but we shouldn't have that overlapping. I also don't think under your tune is the best place for bars like this. There's kind of like a box around your guy that you want to keep open. I would kind of free this up. I think it's better on the right. Here's another example too. So again, I think you should just get my bars. I think you'll love them. I think they're a lot better than these. But like when it comes to redundancy and opening screen space, eliminating redundancies is one surefire way to open screen space. And right here, whoever made these bars, we have this dot displayed twice. That kind of stuff just drives me nuts. And then, so here's the example I wanted to talk about with shields. So right now, absorbed values with your bars fill into the deficit. And when I look at the warrior, I can see one side's brown, one side's green, but those values are almost similar. And for him being at 50% health, how do I say that? Say this. it's not easy to see that he's in danger. So like conversely, if this 50% health bar was brown and his deficit was black because there was no shield here, it'd be a lot more clear his health value. And that is the primary reason for bars, is to see health. So his health value is important, but in a sense, being able to clearly see the deficit is just as important, which is why it's better to just put shields in the front with grid 2. It makes them easier to compare when you're trying to maximize that spell, and it does not get in the way of a deficit.
Five, four,
Rip.
3, 2, 1.
That should have been a shadow covenant.
Afflicted.
I'm not sure what she's having. Just gonna lay on hands. Oh, here's another thing. So with my grid 2, I think it'll solve a lot of these problems, but I think it's pretty standard that tank takes spot 1, healer takes spot 2, followed by DPS, DPS, DPS. And right now, I'm not sure the order here. I honestly can't even read the text. Is it alphabetical? I don't even know. Yeah, another rule of thumb with UI is we want our elements stationary. And the way this weak aura works is these spells of yours, which are important, are never found in the same place. They're always like shifting and rotating and not good. So, and I don't think he plays Shadow Covenant here at all. It is such a short cooldown, we need to play it on every pull.
Afflicted. Afflicted.
Did you just target that Afflicted? You should definitely use a mouse over macro. That is the one time where I use mouse over macros, you just really need that. Yeah, and with the tank with Omni CD, I really think you should only be tracking his personal defensives, and that's because as his healer, you just want to try and not overlap your externals with his personals. So tracking
Afflicted.
his like sack and bop
Afflicted.
doesn't really do much. And I think you're doing a lot of your healing with click. It's pretty hard to see these things from a third party, but click is good. Then what is this black box down here? I don't think it has. I don't know what that is. You should definitely delete that. Try and open up more of your screen space. Held star. So you just had aggro, and I'm not sure your nameplates showed you that. Being able to monitor gaining
Afflicted.
aggro on nameplates is how you do
Afflicted.
it. Missing quite a few dots. Looks like you only have 2 of the 6 dotted. Yeah, I'm like, look at that. Just can't pause it. Yeah, it's fine. Just get my nameplates, get my bars, and I think that'll change a lot for you. So we do have a really good Fear Bomb opportunity here. Let's see if you get it. I actually forget. I think, arguably, let me pause real quick. So if you had my nameplates, this group right here, this dangerous pack, would be divided by 2 colors. We have a darker red and like a medium regular red. And the reason I color code my pulls is there are better mobs for your schism. And right here, I think your better mob is if you attack the zealot. And when I look at your pull here with these 5 mobs, They all look the same to me. I don't think taking the time, like, I think if you're ever reading a name, you're at a disadvantage. If you can just see color values and kind of already know the system and just know how to read the system, I think it gives you it puts you in the position of advantage, and you're going to be focusing the right person. Okay, so we have the mini bosses. And through here, I see it throughout the dungeon, but your nameplates are filled with this purple debuff you're tracking. I'm really not even sure what that is.
Afflicted.
And you definitely really
Afflicted.
only need to be tracking your dot and schism. So I think you missed your dark divine star there. So this is a bar in BigWigs that you should have turned on. I'm pretty sure BigWigs tracks the timer of the ad. You definitely want to see that to time your DPS spells. So when it comes to these ad phases, you'll always have a star. It's not always a dark star, but you really want to just star, potentially spread your dot, and then just Holy Nova. Okay, so with this guy, our most valuable spell is always Shadow Covenant. So that is what you want to play first.
5, 4.
Yeah, and you went into Rapture.
3, 2, 1.
I think it's
Afflicted.
fine,
Afflicted.
but you're going to get more out of Shadow Covenant. Also, with this guy, with BigWigs, I'd really only be tracking the Toxic Effluvia and the Overpowering Croak. Overpowering Quote. You get it. The Belly Slam, there's no reason to see a bar. The Gulp, it is nice to see that timer, but it's a really predictable cadence. It's after the attacks. I put his Gulp on the nameplate. Yeah, so it looks like this is a redundancy here, for example. You have Gulp on his nameplate, and you have Gulp here. You should definitely just have one. So I would say take it off of your BigWigs, put it on his nameplate if you would like, and then take the other things off of his nameplate. But yeah, this is a great place for tendrils. Here comes some damage. We have Atonements out. Shadow Covenant. Okay, in Shadow Covenant, I try to always play Mind
Afflicted.
Blast first.
Afflicted.
So I'll
5,
Shadow Covenant Mind
4,
Blast, Dark
3,
Reprimand.
2, 1.
Really good barrier.
Afflicted.
I think I'm noticing too, you should have a lot of uptime on your Shadow Covenant. Really need to roll that thing on cooldown with only some exceptions. Alright, let's see if we can
4,
watch your next Shadow
3,
Covenant.
2,
And
1.
here we go. Your Harsh Discipline was not procced, and you dropped a Dark Reprimand that was not a proc. Let's see if you get your second one. Yeah, there was your second one. It was not a proc either.
Afflicted. Afflicted.
So when it comes to procs and Dark Reprimands, it's really easy, to be honest, to get procs and get that value. You just kind of have to be conscious of it. But yeah, by design, you want 2 Dark Reprimands, and you want them both procced.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Looks like right here you're
Afflicted.
playing your Shadow Covenant Schism off
Afflicted.
sync on purpose. I'm not sure what happened there.
5, 4,
Afflict.
So food for thought. Oh, that's an image. So when it comes to like the belly slam, for example, the reason I say don't track it on meters, on bars, is because it has nothing to do with your timing of spells and it's not invisible. So he kind of has a graphic when he's about to jump. And then after he jumps, you get a huge graphic. So it's not something invisible like the timer of Toxic Effluvia is. So things that don't pertain to your heals and that are visible otherwise, you don't need bars. It's better to only keep bars up that are about timing your heals.
Afflicted.
3, 2,
Okay. So again, on these guys' bars, you have that weak R that puts all of their cooldown timers on their nameplate. There's no need to see every attack of every mob here. The only timer we need to see is on the Proto Dragon, the Icy Chill, Deep Chill. So yeah, I would turn everything off except the Deep Chill. It just makes it easier for you to see what you need to see when you don't first have to find it. And I think, I'm gonna pause. I think what a rut people fall into is, so seeing that Deep Chill timer is very important here. But what I think happens is people download these packs, or maybe they download all these weak auras, or who knows how we get here. But somewhere on the screen is that Icy Chill, but we first have to find it. So is it this one? Is it this one? Is it? We have to like kind of decipher it first, and like it's kind of like playing Where's Waldo. Instead of being able to see just what you need to see, you kind of have to first find it. And that's why I just say eliminate things that aren't pertinent to your heals. And the only timer pertinent to your heals here is the Deep Chill. So everything else off. And it really doesn't take that long. It is kind of a bitch, but you open up the weak aura. It's sorted by dungeon.
Afflicted.
And you just click each spell. I think there's a button that says activate. It's just like a checkbox. Turn it off. I don't think you could get away with this pull on a fortified week. Yeah, and definitely when it comes to your combat HUD, I think you should replace this one. I think you should let go of the mana bar in the center and then give more screen space to your cast bar.
Afflicted.
It is very
Afflicted.
important for us, and I think having it a little bit bigger is advantageous for you. So I also remember here when I watched this the first time, this is a small group, and you definitely want Shadow Covenant next group, but Shadow Covenant is so quick. It's only a 30-second window. You can play Shadow Covenant every single pull, and you did not play Shadow Covenant here. Okay, you're on the Proto Dragon. That is really good.
Afflicted. Afflicted.
So I would have led with dots. Oh yeah, so I'm just gonna pause real quick. So you schismed and then dotted. Schism is such a finite, valuable window. Something like a dot, I think it was probably just a mistake here, but your dot always wants to be played before schism. That way you do not have to allot time for you to dot in your schism. And then, yeah, let's just play. We almost missed that mass. Oh, it was almost too early on you. So one really small note here. So your harsh discipline is only a 2. Leaving combat right there going into boss, I would have very intentionally had that at a 3. Yeah, because on boss, again, our most valuable spell is Shadow Covenant. I play that first. I think you play Rapture first. But I would say use Shadow Covenant first.
We'll build
Empower.
Let me show ya the power of the elements.
I
Afflicted.
think that was a pretty good rapture,
Afflicted.
but I don't think it was a perfect rapture. And I think it's because you can't really see those absorbed values
3, 2,
with your bars.
1.
Okay, I think you got both of your Dark Upper Man procs there. That is really good.
Afflicted. Afflicted.
So you Radiance there, I probably would have done single atonements.
5, 4, 3, 2.
Schism Shadow
1.
Covenant. Dark Upper Man is ready. Okay, there's a proc. That's good. Let's see if you get your second one. You did not. So one of the reasons, so our Shadow Covenant, I think a problem people have with Discipline is they don't look at their DPS spells as their healing buttons. And in Discipline, there is no boundary like that. Our DPS spells are our healing spells. And in that Shadow Covenant in particular, you missed your second Dark Reprimand because you started healing your like defensive heals in your window. What you needed to have been doing is only pressing your DPS spells, which would naturally refresh and proc your second Dark Reprimand, and that's how you get the second one. So you have to rely on the right spells, and the rest kind of falls into place. But definitely I think I rated your Shadow Covenant like 85%, but it might be more like 75%, so it's a little low. Also, I would not be tracking any bar timers here. It's just clutter on the screen. I like keeping their cast audible cues on, but not their bars, not for this fight. And looks like we're losing a lot of value on Shadow Covenant here. I think it's been up for almost 10 seconds
5,
already.
4.
It is definitely a spell you want to play on cooldown in this fight. So now we're in execute range. We are
Afflicted.
set.
Afflicted.
Wait a second. Where is your pain sup on your screen? Oh, it's down here. So you're seeing it at FAT 2? So a play I like just to buy time, really, is if like my Shadow Covenant is 8 seconds away, I will pain sup myself and for 8 seconds flash heal others. And then that gets the binding heals.
Afflicted.
It leaves atonements behind.
Afflicted.
Okay, so that sucked, but we made it. And all this overlapping up here. Yeah, really try and not have overlap in a UI. Okay, so off the top, what I'm thinking, I would have led with a Rapture. And then again, we entered into Shadow Covenant without a Harsh Discipline proc. And it looks like you pretty much sacrificed all of your Dark Reprimands. I don't think you cast one, procced or not. But, so we have a lot of minimums we have to get. We have to get like 3 Mind Blasts at least 1 Death. We're usually going to cast 1 Radiance in our Shadow Covenant window, but it is very, very important to always get 2 Dark Reprimands that are procced. I feel like I keep saying that, but yeah, it's just so important. And sometimes I drop the second one. I think it's good fear. I think it's actually fairly easy to miss your second one just because of all the button bloat, but it is not that hard to get it either. Okay, we have mini boss. Let's see how you play this.
Do you not see what that
I would lead with Rapture. Okay, so you were
Afflicted.
in your really nice Rapture and you used a Radiance. You needed to just keep Rapturing. Okay, here's Shadow Covenant. You dropped a non-procced Dark Reprimand. And you have a Dark Reprimand proc. So you got 2 Dark Reprimands, one was not a proc. And so just on that note, I'm going to pause real quick. So when it comes to ramping for a Shadow Covenant, we have to do Long Atonements, is what I recommend. And we also have to get our Harsh Discipline to a 3. And that's with the intention of playing Mind Blast first. So if we get into our Shadow Covenant, Harsh Discipline's a 3, Mind Blast is first, that will proc our Dark Reprimand, and we play that second. So one rule of thumb when it comes to Shadow Covenant is generally we want to get there quickly. So that's why I say only go to a 3, play Mind Blast first to get your proc, play your proc second.
Afflicted. Afflicted.
That was a good barrier. So I'm pretty sure this is Plater. I really think Plater only really serves like DPS players. I think as a healer, especially as Disc, a more straightforward, simple set of nameplates is stronger. Okay, so on the rip here, generally I would play Rapture, yours is down, but we want to get into Shadow Covenant almost instantly. And we're still not in Shadow Covenant. We're still not in Shadow Covenant. So the reason I say you want to get into it instantly is because our Shadow Covenant here mainly serves as a DPS button for us. We don't need the healing. So being that it's a DPS button, in this first phase, we can fit 2 if we play our first instantly.
Afflicted.
And
Afflicted.
let's see how it goes. Okay, so you only got 1 Shadow Covenant, and if you watch this back, before the Submerge happened, Schism was available, and you had at least 3 or 4 seconds before the Submerge. So even if you don't get a full second Schism Dark Reprimand Shadow Covenant, it's nice to get like at least 1 full and then 1 partial. But if you play it early enough, you get 2 full ones. And you only got 1. You DM him.
Afflicted. Afflicted.
Good fear. So you're really good at playing your utility, and you get a lot of brownie points there for me. Keys are all about who can out-utility the next person. So in a moment like this, I would have my Harsh Discipline ready, and
Afflicted.
I'm Rapturing before the boss comes
Afflicted.
back. Okay, you're right on track, maybe a little late. I would have played it earlier. And the only reason I want to play it before the boss is out is so that when he comes out again, we want to instantly get into Shadow Covenant. Okay, you just dropped your proc. We really needed that for your Shadow Covenant. Dropped another proc.
Afflicted. Afflicted.
And we're still not Shadow Covenanted. Good barrier. Yeah, you're good with those. Really good with those. Okay, so here's your Shadow Covenant. Dropped a nice proc. Okay, so again, where you could have had 2 Shadow Covenants, you only had a partial one. Also, I believe even with LVY, you should be able to collapse your personal buffs. That is a lot of screen space you could free. So one thing I'm thinking about here is I want to end this phase with a 3 on Harsh Discipline. I want to have my shields from Rapture out before the boss even spawns. As soon as he spawns, Shadow Covenant. And I'll give you a better DM macro, Dominate Mind macro. So you press the macro I have is you press the button once for control, press it again for release. Okay, you're on the right track with the Rapture first, but you should have done it before the boss even spawned. And we want to very quickly get into Shadow Covenant here. So you slightly over-atoned there, and that is a problem because you're eating up more mana. So you Raptured everyone, which covered the attack. And I think you were still in Rapture giving out shields, which is fine. But it's also important to remember, it's not just a shield you're giving out your longest type of atonement. So you have the group fully atoned, Shadow Covenant's available, and you Radianced. So there's no need to Radiance because your Shadow Covenant is also an AoE heal. It's just coming from a different source.
Afflicted.
And you dropped a non-proc. All right, so I'm going to pause it right there. So I think I like this style of video a lot better. I think it might take me a couple times to find the rhythm of this, but I think it'll be more entertaining or useful for people, others. But I want it to also be valuable for you as well and something you can reference and come back to. But my biggest notes are altering your UI. I think I would really recommend you just take ideas from me directly. And I say that because I've put a lot of work into developing a system, a UI that helps me maximize the spec. It's been a lot of trial and error and testing different things out. And from the standpoint of like a teacher to a student, I think the biggest thing that I can do for you is help you not have to also go through that trial and error. So it's something I've already done. I think if you just kind of take my ideas, it's for the best. I think we should go with grid 2. I think you should take my KUI nameplates. I think you should really just really scrap this weak aura here in the middle. It's one of those things where you might be used to it, and if you scrap it, there's going to be, a week of just refamiliarizing yourself with something else. But if you take my combat HUD setup, it is laid out better, and although it may be different, the transition shouldn't be that bad because it's meant to be intuitive and meant to be an aid to you. So your UI, I think, needs quite a bit improvement. We want to open up as much screen space as possible. We want to eliminate redundancies, and we want to eliminate data or info that doesn't matter to us. So we want to really lessen the noise on our screen. We have all these numbers flashing at us and all these cooldowns flashing at us. We want as little as possible, only leaving what is pertinent to us as a disc priest. And I think that will really help you maximize your spec overall. And when it comes to your actual play style, I can't quite tell what's going on with your keybinds. It looks like you have a lot on. To be honest, I can't tell at all. But we have to play our Shadow Covenant a lot more. You didn't play him once. And when it comes to our Shadow Covenant, the closer we can get that to 100% accuracy, the better everything will be. So I think if you can go to a dummy, perhaps watch my Shadow Covenant video that I posted last week, go to a dummy and just work out that rotation and make sure you're hitting all of your spells. So 2 Dark Reprimand procs is mandatory, 3 Mind Blasts mandatory, and you need to also think about making sure you ramp properly into your Shadow Covenant. So however you atone, that's fine. I think long atonement's more valuable. Hold the Radiance. But very importantly, ramping into our Shadow Covenant, we have to have a 3 on our Harsh Discipline. And that's because our plan is to hit Mind Blast first to get that proc to turn it over. And then we play the Dark Reprimand. And then when we're in a window and we're only playing our DPS spells, our Penance and Dark Reprimand will come back available naturally as a proc. And we want to make sure we're getting 2 of those for all of the value. So again, thank you everyone for tuning into my videos, and thank you Amish Mode for being my willing participant this week. I hope you've learned something out of this. Please feel free to keep an open line of communication with me. Ask me general questions, specific questions about what I talked about. I'm happy to go into more depth. And I'm still trying to get going on medify.gg, so please, anyone who has not, go over there and give me a vouch. I'm feeling like I might get verified over there soon. I'm feeling pretty good about it. So just go give me a vouch. And also please check out my Patreon. So right now it just serves as kind of a tip service, but I do have some ideas in the work in the future to have it be more of a community where you can subscribe and get more of my like proprietary information and weak aura packs and things like that. So again, thanks everyone for tuning in. Thanks Amish Mode for letting us view your key. And until next time, Disc out.